Hello and welcome to the Embrace the Mud podcast. In today's episode, we are going to do a shallow dive into a big topic that might resonate deeply with many of you, and that is trauma bonds in relationships. If you're on social media these days or anywhere on the internet, really, you've probably come across this term. So today we're going to do an introduction to what is a trauma bond, what are the symptoms of it, and how do you break free? So let's dive in. You are listening to the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, and life-giving relationships. Why focus on relationships? Because the quality of our intimate partnerships and close connections influences our health, happiness, and longevity more than anything else in our lives. Relationships matter a lot. So together, let's jump into the mud, aka our messy relationships, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and create an enriching environment where strong relationships can take root. I am your grateful host, Dara Posner. I am a relational disaster working toward relational mastery. I am also a positive psychology coach, a relational mindset coach, a blogger, and now a podcaster. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships. If you are a fan of this podcast, please subscribe, follow, like, review, and share. Your engagement in this way is crucial to the success of the podcast, and I appreciate you taking just a few seconds to support my mission, which is to help people like you flourish in life and love. All right, so what exactly is a trauma bond? Well, it's not a term to be taken lightly. A trauma bond forms in unhealthy relationships, often in abusive dynamics. This is that on again, off again, really, really high highs, really, really low lows roller coaster of a relationship that leaves you feeling emotionally entangled and drained. This bond isn't just psychological, it's deeply rooted in your brain's chemistry. When you look at the neuroscience of what is happening in a trauma bond, essentially what you can liken it to is addiction. And it's not an addiction to the person or the relationship, but rather it is an addiction to the highs that come after the lows in a relationship like this. You have a major fight or a huge blowout. There's a major disconnection. Someone's threatened to leave the relationship. You have this chaotic, really painful experience. And then what comes next? What comes next is this reconciliation, right? That is very intense. There is a restoration of a quote unquote connection, and it's not a real connection, but it feels like a connection. And there is reassurance and affirmation and words like, I never want to live without you, and I'm so sorry, I love you more than life, and you're everything to me. And the chemical release in your brain in those moments is what you get hooked on. And it is a hook, a real hook. And it's very, very difficult to release and let go. How do you know if you are in a trauma bond? Here's a very short checklist of symptoms that you might want to reflect on. There's intense emotional reactions. There's a constant push-pull dynamic. There's feeling addicted to the relationship despite knowing that it's harmful for you, and a pervasive fear of abandonment. Recognizing these signs is crucial for you to begin your journey to healing. The first step is always awareness, recognizing that you are in fact in a trauma bond. And for me personally, one of the most destructive aspects of a trauma bond relationship is that those harmful behaviors that happen and that precede that, reconciliation, where all of those positive, intense emotions occur, is that your brain during those positive moments diminishes the severity of the harmful things. Your brain is in a constant sort of cognitive dissonance where it's battling between the good and the bad, the really harmful things and the positive things. And again and again, you tell yourself that the bad isn't really that bad. Yeah, you know what, they called me that horrible name, but maybe I deserved it. I was short with them, or I didn't do what I said I was going to do and they were really upset about it. Or, my partner has trauma in their background. And so when they lash out like that, it's not because they don't love me. It's not because they don't care about me. It's because they themselves are wounded. And we can convince ourselves that the abuse or just the really toxic behavior that we're experiencing isn't that bad. So breaking free from a trauma bond is challenging, to say the least, but it is absolutely possible. And here are some actionable tips to guide you in breaking free from this type of a bond. The first thing is to seek professional support. I really, really encourage anyone who recognizes that they have a trauma bond relationship to get some professional guidance, someone who's experienced in trauma and can provide you with the guidance that you need to break free. The second thing is to establish boundaries. Clearly define what is acceptable and what is not acceptable to you in the relationship. You want to sit down with yourself and make a list of the behaviors when you're of sound mind, in those moments where you can think clearly and be connected to your wise adult self. Really look at the harmful aspects of the relationship and create clear boundaries around them. And we get really confused about what it looks like to set boundaries. And it's so much more than telling someone what they can and cannot do. It's actually not that at all. It's about deciding for ourselves what we're going to do in the face of these behaviors to prioritize ourselves. And that's number 3. Number 3 is focus on self-care. You have to prioritize your mental and emotional well-being and make your well-being more important to you than the relationship. And number 4, create a support system. Do not think you can do this alone. I invite you to surround yourself with friends and family who uplift and understand. And this is tough because a lot of people don't understand trauma bonds. They're like, look, this is toxic. It's unhealthy. You've got to get out, right? To them, it's very simple. But when you are addicted to this experience, it's a real addiction in your brain. You need people around you who get it, at least to the degree to where they can be compassionate with you, patient, and understanding as you go through this difficult journey of breaking free from the trauma bond. Ultimately, what's going to break that bond is stability. You have to get out of the cycle of those highs and lows. And sometimes you can do that in a relationship. If you are in partnership with someone who is a basically decent person, you both are basically decent people, and you recognize the toxicity, you recognize that this is an unhealthy dynamic, and you both have a desire and capacity to start doing your own healing work to break free from these cycles, then that can happen. But you have to have stability. You have to break free from this hot, cold, up and down, push-pull dynamic that is keeping you in this state of trauma bonding. And sometimes that's not possible. And you need to find that stability by removing yourself from the relationship altogether. Remember that you deserve healthy, stable relationships. Recognizing and understanding trauma bonds is a powerful step towards creating the fulfilling connections you truly deserve. All right, that is all I have for you for today. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, and also please leave a review if you haven't already. Also, please share this episode with anyone who you think might benefit from it. I'd love to connect with you in other spaces, so if you're not already following me on Instagram, my handle is @EmbraceTheMud, and I really enjoy creating educational and inspirational content for you there. And last but not least, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter, Questions for the Soul, which you can do at mudcoaching.com. If you like to journal, this newsletter is for you. I will send you a weekly journal prompt to help you create the time and the space to just sit down with yourself once a week and do an exploration of what it is that you truly value, need, and desire in your life and relationships. And as usual, I'll be back very soon with another episode for you here on Embrace the Mud. Until then, please remember, you are wired for love and connection. You are capable of love and connection. You are worthy of love and connection. I'll see you soon.